So your water heater is leaking, or maybe it's just not heating like it used to, and you're wondering whether this is a job you can handle yourself or if you need to shell out for a plumber. Here's the thing. Replacing a water heater is one of the most doable home plumbing jobs out there, and I'm going to walk you through the entire process from start to finish. We're talking shutting everything down, draining the old tank, disconnecting all the lines, getting the new unit in place, and making sure everything is tight and working before you're done. And if you stick around to the end, I've got a bonus tip that can literally double the lifespan of your new water heater. Something most people never do, and then wonder why they're replacing it again 8 years later. Let's get into it. Replacing a water heater looks more complicated than it actually is. Once you understand the sequence and know what connects where, it's really just a matter of working through the steps one at a time. This is absolutely a beginner-friendly job, and doing it yourself can save you anywhere from $300 to $600 in labor alone. Let's start with what you need to know going in. Before you touch anything, take a look at your current unit. Note the tank size, which is usually printed right on the label. Common sizes are 40 gallons and 50 gallons. If you can get a new water heater that's roughly the same size and height as the old one, your install is going to go much smoother. The connections will line up close to where they already are, and you won't be fighting the vent or gas line to reach. Also confirm whether you have a gas water heater or electric. This guide covers gas, which is the most common setup in most American homes. All right, let's get into it. The very first thing you need to do is shut everything down. Go to the water heater and close the cold water supply valve, which is the valve on the incoming line at the top of the tank. Turn it until it's perpendicular to the pipe. That means it's closed. Then find your gas valve, which is typically located on the gas line running to the unit, and turn that perpendicular as well. Finally, go to the water heater's control unit and turn the dial to the pilot or off setting. You do not want the burner trying to fire while the tank is empty. That's how you burn out a thermocouple and create a whole separate problem for yourself. Take your time here and make sure all 3 of those things are done before you move on. With everything shut down, it's time to drain the tank. This step takes the longest, so get it going early. First, go to the nearest sink or tub and open the hot water side. This lets air into the system and allows the tank to drain properly. Without it, you'll barely get a trickle out. Now find the drain valve at the bottom of the water heater. It looks like a hose bib, the same kind of spigot you'd connect a garden hose to outside. Attach a standard garden hose to it and run the other end to a floor drain, outside, or into a large bucket if the heater is elevated. Once your hose is in place, slowly open the drain valve and let it run. Depending on tank size, this can take anywhere from 20 to 45 minutes. While it's draining, don't just stand there. Use this time to stage your tools and get the new water heater nearby. One thing to know, the water coming out may be hot, especially if the heater was still warm. Be careful with where you're draining it. Once the flow slows to a trickle and then stops, close the drain valve back up. Now it's time to disconnect everything on top and at the sides. Start with the water lines. You'll have 2 lines coming off the top of the tank, one cold coming in and one hot going out. These are usually connected with fittings you can get loose with a pipe wrench or a good pair of channel locks. If you've got rigid copper pipes soldered directly to the tank, the cleanest move is to cut them with a small pipe cutter a few inches above the tank. You can then use shark bite fittings, no soldering required, to attach flexible braided supply lines to the new heater. I actually recommend doing this even if your existing connections come apart cleanly. Flexible lines make future replacements much faster and give you a little wiggle room when positioning the new unit. Next, disconnect the gas line. There's usually a union fitting or a flexible gas connector involved. Use 2 wrenches, one to hold the fitting steady and one to turn. You may find a small adapter piece threaded into the gas inlet on the tank itself. It'll likely have pipe dope on it, which is a thread sealant paste. Keep that adapter piece. You'll probably need it for the new heater. After the gas line is loose, remove the vent hood from the top of the tank. It's typically held on with 2 to 4 sheet metal screws. Set those screws aside. Finally, if your unit has earthquake straps securing it to the wall, remove those too. If you have a temperature and pressure relief valve with a discharge pipe threaded into the side of the tank, unthread that pipe as well. You can reuse that valve and pipe on the new unit if it's in good shape. Hey, if this walkthrough is saving you some money, go ahead and hit subscribe. More DIY plumbing content like this coming regularly. Now, back to it. With everything disconnected, it's time to pull the old unit out and get the new one in position. Water heaters aren't terribly heavy once they're empty, but they are awkward. If you've got someone who can help you walk it out, use them. Tilt it slightly to get it moving. Be mindful of the gas stub out and any other lines nearby, and take it slow. The last thing you want to do is bump a gas fitting or crimp a line on your way out. Once the old unit is clear, walk the new one into position. Get it centered under the vent opening above and as close to the existing gas and water connections as you can. If it came on a pallet or in cardboard, take all that off before you move it into the final spot. Now let's start reconnecting, and we'll begin with the water lines. If you're using flexible braided supply lines, which I strongly recommend, start by threading them onto the cold and hot connections on top of the new tank. Before you thread anything on, wrap the male threads with Teflon tape. About 3 full rotations, applied in a clockwise direction as you're looking down at the opening. That direction matters. When you tighten the fitting down, it should tighten the tape onto the threads, not roll it back off. Hand tighten first until it's snug, then use a wrench for about 1/4 to a 1/2 turn more. Don't go crazy. Over-tightening plastic-lined fittings on water heaters is a fast way to crack them. Connect the other end of each line to your existing supply stub-outs the same way. With the water lines in place, reconnect the gas line. If you removed an adapter piece from the old tank's gas inlet, thread it into the new tank first using pipe dope on the threads. Pipe dope is a thick paste-style thread sealant, and you want a solid coat on those threads, especially on anything going into the gas valve on the tank itself. Thread the flexible gas connector onto the adapter, again using pipe dope, and snug it up with your wrenches. Once the gas line is connected, go ahead and open the gas valve back up. Now check for leaks in 2 ways. First, just put your nose close to the connection and take a good whiff. If you smell anything sulfur-like or gassy, stop and tighten things up before going further. Second, mix a little dish soap with water and brush or spray it onto every gas connection you just made. Watch closely for bubbles forming and expanding. Bubbles mean gas is escaping. If you see any, tighten the fitting, reapply pipe dope if needed, and test again. If you get no bubbles and no smell, you're clear. Now reattach the vent. Slide the vent hood back onto the flue collar on top of the new water heater and secure it with your sheet metal screws, the ones you set aside earlier, or new ones if the new heater came with its own. The critical thing here is the angle. The vent pipe needs to run with a consistent upward slope from the water heater all the way to where it exits the structure. If any section runs flat or dips downward, exhaust gases won't draft properly and you'll have a real problem on your hands. If the existing vent pipe is too long for the new unit, use metal shears to trim it down. If it needs to be extended slightly, most hardware stores carry adjustable vent sections in common sizes. Now it's time to fill the tank and check your water connections. Go back to that sink you opened earlier and make sure the hot side is still open. Then go open the cold water supply valve at the top of the water heater. Water will start flowing into the tank. At the sink, you'll hear it sputtering and spitting air as the tank fills. That's completely normal. Once the tank is full, the hot side of the sink will run a steady stream of cold water. That's your signal that the tank is full. While it's filling, crouch down and watch every water connection you made. Run your hand under each one and feel for any moisture. Even a slow drip will show up quickly. In my experience, even with good Teflon tape work, you occasionally get a connection that needs one more snug quarter turn. If you see a leak, don't panic. Turn off the cold supply, let a little water drain out of the tank by opening the drain valve slightly, then disconnect the fitting, add another layer of Teflon tape, and reconnect. Once you're sure there's no dripping anywhere, let the tank fill completely before moving to the next step. With a full tank and no leaks, it's time to light the pilot and get the water heating. The lighting instructions are printed right on the front of the water heater. Every brand has its own procedure, but they're all very similar. Turn the control dial to the pilot setting, press it in to open the gas flow to the pilot, then press the igniter button. You should see a small flame in the view window at the base of the unit. Hold the dial in for about 30 seconds after lighting to let the thermocouple heat up, then slowly release it. The flame should stay lit. Once the pilot is going, turn the dial to your desired temperature setting. Most people land on the warm or hot setting, which is typically around 120 degrees Fahrenheit. That's warm enough for comfortable use and low enough to reduce mineral buildup inside the tank. Keep in mind it can take up to 30 to 45 minutes for the water to fully heat up, so don't test it right away and assume something is wrong. Let's go over a few issues you might run into and how to handle them. First, if your pilot won't stay lit after you release the control knob, the thermocouple is likely the problem. The thermocouple is a small sensor that detects the pilot flame and signals the gas valve to stay open. If it didn't get hot enough, or if it's worn out, it'll shut the gas off as soon as you release the knob. Try holding the knob in for a full 45 seconds before releasing. If it still won't hold, the thermocouple may need to be replaced. It's a cheap part and a straightforward fix. Second, if you hear a loud rumbling or popping sound from the new tank in the first day or two, don't be alarmed. Some sediment from your water supply can settle quickly, especially if you didn't fully flush the lines before filling. This usually settles down on its own. If it persists, drain and refill the tank once more. Third, if you smell a slight sulfur or rotten egg odor from the hot water after installation, this is often caused by a reaction between the anode rod and certain water supplies. Switching to an aluminum or zinc anode rod can resolve this pretty quickly. Fourth, if the temperature and pressure relief valve is dripping after installation, the valve may have been triggered during filling if pressure spiked. Try lifting the test lever briefly to reseat it. If it continues dripping, replace the valve. They're inexpensive and are critical safety components. Fifth, if you notice water pooling under the unit and all your connections are tight, check the temperature and pressure relief valve discharge pipe. Make sure it's properly threaded in and angled downward. Sixth, if the vent feels warm to the touch around the connections, check that all sections are tight and that there are no gaps where exhaust could be escaping into the room. All right, here's that bonus tip I mentioned at the start, and this one is genuinely worth staying for. Your new water heater has something inside it called an anode rod. It's a long metal rod, usually magnesium or aluminum, that threads into the top of the tank. Its entire job is to corrode so that the steel interior of your tank doesn't. It's a sacrificial component. It takes the deterioration so the tank walls don't. Most homeowners never touch it, and that's exactly why they're replacing water heaters every 8 to 10 years instead of getting 15 to 20 out of them. The recommendation is to inspect and replace the anode rod every 3 to 5 years. To do it, you need to locate the hex head on top of the tank. It's usually under a plastic cap or covered by the sheet metal top panel. You'll need a 1 1/16 inch socket and a breaker bar because these are almost always extremely tight. Once you get it out, take a look at it. If it's less than ½ an inch thick or you can see the steel core wire running through it, it's time for a new one. New anode rods run about $20 to $30 at any hardware store. Wrap the threads with Teflon tape, thread it in, and torque it down firmly. That's it. Do this every few years and your new water heater could easily last 2 decades. That's the complete breakdown on replacing your water heater from start to finish. If this helped you out, hit subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss the next one. Got questions? Ran into something I didn't cover? Or have your own tips from the job? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Thanks for watching.